of The Big Bookshelf by it's by Sunil Sethi, in conversation with 30 famous writers. And actually, as speakers today, we've got Danial Moinuddin and H.M. Naqvi, who both appear in the book. Oh, I'm sorry. H.M. Naqvi doesn't. That's right, yes. Actually, Mohsen Hamid was supposed to join us today, and he appears in the book. And I'm sorry, he couldn't come because he said he hasn't finished reading the book. Sunil Sethi is a journalist, a columnist, a television presenter, and he has hosted the weekly literary show Just Books on NDTV since early 2005. So this is a weekly television program on books, of which he has now had 300 sessions. And of these 300, I think he has picked 30 of the authors whom he has interviewed. But, and I think this is a remarkable achievement, because I feel the sure sign of success, at least in my book, is if you can sustain something. And this is, Sunil has more than done that. I think this, as he writes in the introduction of his book, that when he thought of this program, he describes how they came to this decision. And initially, on having a weekly program, and initially people felt that it's not going to hold interest, a program just on books. But I think the way that Sunil decided to curate the program and structure it, it has just taken off. And I'm delighted that last year, one of his programs was on the Karachi Literature Festival as well. In addition to hosting this program, Sunil was one of the founding members of the editorial team of India Today, and he's worked for the Hindustan Times, and he's been a columnist for the Hindustan Times and the Indian Express. His journalism has appeared in The Economist, the Boston Globe, and several international publications. He has scripted and presented documentaries for BBC and Channel 4. A recipient of the Nieman Fellowship at Harvard University and the Japan Foundation Fellowship. He is married to the textile designer Shalini, who's also at the Karachi Literature Festival, #2 this year. And they have a daughter and they live in New Delhi. Just a few words about our speakers. H.M. Naqvi is a graduate of Georgetown and the creative writing program at Boston University. He has worked in finance, run a spoken word venue, and taught creative writing at BU. He has received a Lannan Fellowship, a Phelim Prize, and has read verse at NPR and BBC, and at Lollapalooza. And as you know, he recently won the DSC Prize for the best book in South Asia in Jaipur a couple of weeks ago. And do you know that we'll also be having a ceremony, HM, in Karachi? I didn't know that. Oh, really? Well, actually, I got a message from the DSC, and they said that they want to work with OUP to have a ceremony. So I look forward to that. Our other speaker is Danial Moinuddin, and of course, HM is the author of Homeboy. Our other speaker is Danial Moinuddin, author of In Other Rooms, Other Windows. Danial Moinuddin graduated from Dartmouth College and Yale Law School. After winning a Fulbright scholarship to study at Norway, he practiced law in New York before returning to Kanpur, Pakistan, to manage the family farm. And I think if I can find I just wanted to read to you very quickly what Sunil Sethi has written about Danial Moinuddin as an introduction to his interview. Moinuddin's debut of 8 interconnected stories are forceful both in content and form. They evoke with unerring precision life on a feudal agricultural estate in contemporary Pakistan with cool detachment With cool detachment, they examine the bitter predatory relationship between servants and masters, often younger women and older men. Moinuddin and his blonde Scandinavian wife were at the Jaipur Lit Fest that year, and with their movie star looks, they made a handsome couple. The facts of Moinuddin's life are unusual. His father, an ICS officer, was posted to Washington after independence, where he married an American. When Danial was 13, his parents separated. He was mostly raised in America with return visits to Pakistan and went to Dartmouth College and Yale Law School. But eventually he returned to live and manage the family land holdings in the remote backwater of Pakistan. Moinuddin is not a talkative man. His answers are pointed and to the point, and he speaks in staccato bursts. So, this book, I find it's an absolutely riveting book, The Big Bookshelf. And he covers literary giants, Nobel laureates, Booker Prize winners, acclaimed historians, biographers, authors, thrillers, novels, and travel books. And some of the interviews that I read were so candid and so intimate that you really got to look into the minds of these wonderful authors that he has brought together. And I think through writing this book, he has really, in a way, done what we are trying to do. We are trying to connect authors and readers, and I think this is what Sunil Sethi has done in this book. There are 4 Pakistani authors who are covered in it. Danial Moinuddin, Mohsin Hamid, Nadeem Aslam, who is of Pakistan origin, and Bapsi Sidhwa. But there are wonderful people like Nadine Godimer covered in it. And Sunil asks her what she felt about the US electing a black president. And she said, well, he's not black, he's black and white. And she said something about, she said when she was young, she never thought that a Catholic would be elected president, and Kennedy was. So she wasn't that surprised that a black and white was elected president. There are wonderful pieces in this book, and I would recommend all of you to read it. Unfortunately, the book is so popular that yesterday it got sold out. So I'm afraid there are no copies left for you today. But if you need copies, please go to the Liberty bookstall outside, and you can place orders. And Liberty have said that if you place orders, they will have the book delivered to you, wherever you may be. So when you place an order, just leave your address. But Danial's books, a book, and H.M. Naqvi's book, they're both available outside. Thank you. So now over to you. I think we'll start with you, Sunil, if you could talk about this book, the genesis and the experience.
Amina, thank you very much for your kind words and generous introduction, generous as always. I'm so pleased to be at the Karachi Literature Festival. I really feel that I'm really part of its origins in a very small way, because I was here at the last festival, which was its nascent beginning, and I'm just thrilled to see that it's grown really threefold in its second avatar. I just hope it won't become the kind of lunatic juggernaut that the Jaipur Literature Festival has become in 5 years. It's a monster. I really feared being trampled a few weeks ago in the Pink City. What's wonderful about the Karachi Lit Fest, which people like Amina Sayed and Asif Saab and all have come together to start, is that it has a warmth and intimacy, a kind of one-on-one candor where readers, writers, publishers can all come together. And I hope it retains that fantastic character, because that is one of the things I was aiming for in the show I started 6 years ago called Just Books on NDTV, which has been going on every week without a single week's break for more than 300 editions. Penguin Books in India last year got onto my case and said, do you realize how popular your show is? One of the things about doing a show or being a journalist or filing reports or writing columns is that you just peg away like writers. I don't think I ever had an average viewer in mind. Danial and Hussein Naqvi may tell us whether they have readers in mind when they're writing books. But I think journalists have a very bad habit of just tunneling along. And suddenly, when they can't see the light at the end, somebody else shines it rather brightly. So when Penguin said, do you know that your show has made such an enormous difference, not only to our readership, but book sales, why don't you put together a selection of the best of your 300 interviews? I must say I became very faint-hearted at the idea, because another bad habit the journalists have is that they don't want to look back. They're so engaged by the next story, the next interview, the next show, that the minute you file or your show is on air, it's already history, and that's the media for you, particularly in the digital age. What has the digital age done to the media and books is a question that hits me increasingly with resounding force. I come home after a day's recordings, and I've barely opened the laptop that I see my show is exploding on air already via YouTube. And I switch on my cell phone and I find it flooded with Twitter messages from really pretty grasping authors saying, do you know, we've just been interviewed by Sunil Sethi on Just Books, and in fact the Twitter messages go on throughout the interview in a bizarre way. How they can concentrate on an interview and be tweeting beats me. I think that's one reason I compiled this anthology. I wanted to show how much the world of writers has changed, and to contrast the new with the old and established. There's a wonderful quote here from the Indian-American novelist Anita Desai, who's a very shy person, a very, very brilliant novelist and teacher of creative writing, who says that when she was writing as a housewife in Delhi and Bombay in the 1950s and 60s, she was a conventional housewife bringing up 4 children, married to a company executive. That writing was really, what a strange thing for a woman to do, a married woman with kids. So she wrote in hiding, as a secret activity. And her children would get shocked one day when the book came out and say, Mommy, when did you do this? We never saw you. Because she was meant to be sending them off to school and packing lunches and hosting parties for her husband. Anita Desai, of course, is the mother of the Booker Prize-winning author Kiran Desai. And in a wonderful interview which counterpoints mother and daughter's writing and therefore a generational change, Kiran very movingly says that my mother had to fight for her art. And my luck was that because of people of her generation, I didn't have to fight that fight. That was, I think, one of the purposes of the bookshelf, the big bookshelf. I wanted to contrast not just why writers write or where their creative springs emerge or what is the writing process and the nature of the impulse, but I wanted to show how the world and the writer's world has changed. But I've got 2 amazing writers on either side of me, both great friends. And I think probably the best way to continue this discussion is for them to interview me. And we'll take it from there. Daniel? Hussein?
Let's see. So I'm supposed to be interviewing him, all right. We'll talk about which books sort of inspired you as you started in this sort of adventure.
You know, I've always been a reader. I think I just grew up in a house full of books. And it's now a house actually constructed of books. I get about 25 books a week to review or to put on the show. So, I mean, our staff in the house complains that there's no space left on the kitchen counters because they're piled high with books. There are books on the floor, there are books on the dining table, there are books in my library. And one of the questions I'm often asked is, what do I do with all those extra books? Because I can't keep